This new moon in Sagittarius on December 1st, 2024 is a very hot and fiery new moon. And when we have an astrological alignment with a lot of fire, I think it's even more important for us to be really conscientious about how we align and how we utilize and leverage this energy, because fire can cook our food or it can burn down our house. Fire, emotionally, psychologically, can reignite our inspiration, revitalize us, give us more passion and energetic vitality physically. Or too much fire can burn us out and leave us anxious. So let's take a look at the stars above, and we're going to take a peek at the tarot below and see just how best to utilize the Sagittarius new moon. All right, so first, the sun and the moon are conjunct at 9 degrees in Sagittarius. And this is what happens with every new moon. The sun and the moon become conjunct, meaning that they're on top of one another, and so their energies become combined. And the sun represents our identity, the moon represents our subconscious and our emotional self. And then in addition to this, we also have Mercury at 20 degrees in Sagittarius. And Mercury right now is retrograde. It will be for another couple weeks. And even though Mercury is not conjunct the sun and the moon, Mercury is playing a really big part in this new moon energy. I think it's also really important to note that this is the last new moon in 2024, and new moons are typically more about like new beginnings and planting seeds of attention and then nurturing them as from the new moon and as the light grows into the full moon. And so it's kind of interesting that we're at the end of 2024 and we're in an alignment that is asking us, well, and we're going to talk about how like this very much is energy that can be used for new beginnings, even though like time-wise, as far as like the season goes during the year, December is the last month of the year. We're thinking more in terms of endings than typically we are new beginnings, which usually comes in January. But this new moon, I think, is asking us to maybe plan ahead a little bit more as to what it is that we want for 2025. Because this is the analogy that's coming to my mind is when you germinate a seed, that seed needs heat, right? So, and that is the kind of energy that this new moon can bring as long as we focus our energy appropriately. So let's get back to Mercury. So even though Mercury is in retrograde, and Mercury in retrograde is not the most convenient, it gets a lot of bad rep because it does it does cause a little bit of messiness when it's in retrograde. People have noticed that when Mercury goes retrograde, technology doesn't work as fluidly, miscommunication happens more, travel delays are more common, misunderstandings when people are communicate are more common. So needless to say, it's not a convenient thing when Mercury goes retrograde. However, what it can do is Mercury rules our communication as well as our intellect. It rules how we understand things. So when it goes retrograde, it is a time in which our attention is being asked to go inwards. And that is very much in alignment with the season of the year. And so Sagittarius is a energy that is about education. It's about focus. Like Sagittarius is the centaur, but he's also the archer. So he's very focused on what his goal is, what his aim is. And this is another way in which I think we are being prepared for whatever it is that we want to do in 2025. This Sagittarian energy of both the sun, the moon, and Mercury, our identity, our emotions, our subconscious, and how we are understanding things, how we are, our perspectives and how we're processing information are all around this very like, what is it that I really want to focus on? And it's also something that is very much associated with like group gatherings and social kind of, things. Because Sagittarius is a very gregarious, very social kind of sign. But the energy that we're going to talk about when we get into the grand trine is telling us that although the social circles, like this is a really good energy that can kind of keep things kind of light and nice within our social interactions. The flip side of that, though, is that we might be predisposed to want to use those social engagements as a distraction when really the energy is asking us to go within. And that's because the sun and the moon in Sagittarius is squaring the midheaven in Virgo. So the midheaven is a point in the sky that it is what it sounds like. It's what sign is in the middle of the sky right now, which is Virgo, which is ruled by Mercury. So here again, we have that Mercury kind of energy. And what's also very interesting too is that Virgo in Mercury, like we usually think of Virgo as like analytical and digesting information, very process oriented and organized. But Virgo is also associated with the archetype of the nurse or the healer. And then we also have Mercury, the actual planet in Mercury in Sagittarius, which is also about re-educating ourselves. And when Mercury's in Sagittarius, it has a very like long game kind of perspective. Just like the archer is not looking at what's directly in front of him, but he's looking way out into the distance. That is the perspective that typically Mercury in Sagittarius gives us. It gives us the long perspective, like what is out there in the distance, what are my distant goals, and because Mercury is very like process oriented as well, it does have the ability, especially when we're talking about, you know, as far as its association with Virgo, to break those goals down into milestones and steps so that we can reach that goal. So usually Mercury is like really focused on what's out there. But because the planet Mercury is in retrograde, it is asking us not necessarily to look out into the distant horizons, it's asking us to look deep within our souls. So the amount of length that it can usually give us as far as our perspective is actually being inverted and asking us to look deep within as to what is it that's really important to us. We're really being asked to take stock. And so that gets into the grand trine that is in during this new moon. So like I said, we have the sun and the moon in Sagittarius at 9 degrees, and a grand trine is like a big blue triangle, right? So we have the sun and the moon, they're on top of each other in Sagittarius at 9 degrees, and then it is connected to Mars in Leo at 5 degrees, and Mars is also a fiery planet. Leo is a fiery sign, just like Sagittarius is. And then we have the North Node in Aries at 3 degrees. That makes the other part of that big triangle. And the North Node is a point in the sky that represents what it is that we're moving towards. And it's been in Aries for like a year and a half, I think. So it's been there for a while. And the North Node has been teaching us over the last year and a half about sovereignty and independence. And this North Node is right next to Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees. Now, even though these two planets, the North Node, sorry, not the planet, the North Node is just a point in the sky. The North Node in Aries is only 6 degrees away from Neptune in Pisces. And Neptune rules Pisces, so Neptune is perfectly at home. And even though these two are in different signs, because they're so close together, their energies are being combined. So what's very interesting is that you have all of this fire. You have Sagittarius, you have Leo, you have Aries, and then you have Mars that's in Leo, which is a fiery planet. And then you have this deep, watery energy that is just kind of thrown into the mix a little bit. And when water and fire combine, what do you get? You get steam, you get detoxification, you get purification. And Pisces is the energy around spiritual alignment. It is around our imagination, and it is about our dreams. So and Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is our identity, like we talked about. So, and then Mars is our energy and our physical vitality. So we are really being asked, like, what lights your fire? What inspires you? What dream can you dream that's going to really be exciting enough to overcome whatever obstacles might stand in the way of that? And so the fire of this trine can help us go from complacency to invigoration. And it can really help us kind of like get through any of these situations where, like, if you're in a space where, like, either in a job, relationship, whatever, where you know you're done, but you don't really know exactly what time would be appropriate to make your exit, or how to make your exit, how to work all the logistical details around that. This fire can really kind of burn away all of the confusion and create a clear road ahead so that you can move forward. So this fire can be incredibly purifying. And I know that it sounds really cliche, but really, if you could sum the energy of that grand trine, it's really follow your bliss. And I know that sounds a little cheesy, like we've heard that, a million times, but that's truly what it is. And, the other quote that comes to my mind, again, a little cheesy, but it's true: what you want wants you. And I'm not talking about just like the idle entertainment or, just kind of like haphazard distractions. I'm talking about like what your heart really wants, the universe wants from you. So this is deeper than just like, our Christmas lists, or like even the, resolutions. If you do resolutions for the next year, it's really about like, how do you want to express yourself? How do you want to show up in the world? So any of us that have been going through kind of like some identity stuff, like who am I, where, like, what's my place in the world, this fiery new moon can really help us kind of like burn off the fog, so to speak. The other thing too that's very interesting is that this sun and moon in Sagittarius is opposing Jupiter, that's at 17 degrees in Gemini. So again, we have Mercury, again, because Gemini is also ruled by Mercury. It's at 17 degrees in Gemini. And Gemini is a very communicative kind of sign. It really rules communication and processing information. And Jupiter being in Gemini, Jupiter expands anything that it touches. So the sun and the moon is in opposition to this. So they're kind of butting heads a little bit, or I guess a better way to put it is not necessarily that it doesn't feel like they're really in conflict as much as they're like creating a bit of friction. But sometimes friction is good, because if you don't have any friction, like let's say that, like, for example, if you've ever driven on an icy road, you know that if you don't have enough friction between your tire and the road, you end up sliding off the road. We have to have some friction in order to move ahead. And that's what this kind of feels like. It doesn't seem like the kind of friction that is so much that it makes it like really difficult to get ahead. It's more about the kind of helpful friction that is needed in order to move ahead. So whatever it is that you might be bumping up against over the next couple weeks, as far as like challenges, or even just like how you feel about certain situations, take a look and see if there might be some information within that friction that you're feeling that is almost like a signpost telling you which way to go. There is signposts that pull us towards where we want to go, and then there are signposts that push away the direction that we shouldn't go. So either way, it can be helpful. And so it might be worthwhile to take a look and see, like, if anything like that comes up, how you might leverage those situations to make the best decisions. And let's take a look here. There is, oh yes, so we also have Sun and Moon squaring Saturn in Pisces. And so Saturn is a planet that rules over karma, it rules over traditions, patterns. It also enhances our ability to use the dreams that Pisces can give us, because Saturn's in Pisces, and Pisces about dream and the subconscious and spiritual connection. And Saturn is about karma, and it's about and it redirects. It's a very large energy that directs where it is that we want to go, or how we might want to reorganize our life in the future. So if there's certain patterns, certain things that are coming up in your life that you don't like, there was a quote that I read somewhere that I don't remember who it is that said. So if you know who said this quote, let us know in the comments below. But I think it was a shaman, or at least a book about a shaman. I'm not doing a very good job of validating this quote, but it's a good one. It says, if you want to change the world, dream a different dream. And that was something that I felt like was really, really poignant, that we do live in a simulation. This is like what the ancients called the Maya. It's called the great illusion, or the great play. And so our thoughts, our beliefs, and how we feel, because our feelings are magnetic, they do, if they are allowed enough time and enough space and enough concentration, they do create a predisposition for what it is that how our world looks. So if we want to make the world a better place, we dream a different dream. And that is what Saturn in Pisces is telling us, that it's time to take a look, to go deep down into what your soul really, really wants, excavate that gold from deep within you, and be audacious enough to allow it to be really big, or even to be honest enough to let it be simple. However it is that feels authentic and feels most inspiring to you, that is the direction to go. And Saturn is there to help us, because Saturn the planet itself is huge, and it has a huge gravitational pull. So think of that as an analogy of like the amount of energy that Saturn can leverage for you as your identity, the sun, your emotions and subconscious, the moon, are creating this bit of conflict, this bit of friction with Saturn in Pisces, which is saying, okay, there might be certain things that we might need to let go, but Saturn is big enough of an energy to take the potential of what it is that you would like to replace whatever it is you're letting go of, and replace that with something that potentially could be even greater than anything that you had considered in the first place. So this new moon has a ton of positive potential that we can take well into 2025. Now, here's the thing that might trip us up, and I'm not saying this as like, kind of anything negative, but it's important to know what can trip us up so that we can be aware of it, and so that when those challenges come up, maybe we can just step right on over them, or at the very least not get caught up in them so much that they become, enough of a distraction to stop us. And the thing that can kind of trip us up a bit is Chiron at 19 degrees in Aries. So Chiron is the wounded healer. In a birth chart, it will let us know like what wounds it is that we are really here karmically to heal, what lessons we really need to learn. And at 19 degrees in Aries, Aries rules over the sovereign self. So this is very much like how we feel about ourselves. And so some things that could come up are self-doubt, fear of judgment, perhaps even abandonment issues could come up, codependent tendencies, any kind of self-esteem stuff might come up, and also like a fear of being misperceived in some sort of way, like, and how we understand ourselves. Like all of those type of things might come up as the very crucible, so to speak, that we have to break open from in order to free ourselves from those chains. So like enlightenment, awakening, and spiritual evolution. I like the analogy of smelting gold. When you smelt gold into a fire, it will separate the gold from the impurities. And that's what I think this fire element is doing to a certain degree. We've been cooking for a while. Like 2024 wasn't no joke. And I'd like to say that the intensity is going to start kind of dissipating, but that's not the truth. Astrologically speaking, we're in for a bit of a roller coaster for a while. However, what we were going to see is with this intensity, it is like we are being smelted over and over again, and each time we become more authentic, pure versions of ourselves. And as we do that, we then open up more space and capacity for true fulfillment. And it's not easy, but it's often a lot more simple than we think it is. And by that I mean it doesn't have to be as confusing as we potentially make it be, because it feels confusing. So like, for example, like when we have to let go of something that's painful, sometimes we can create confusion around that just simply because we don't want to. So this new moon is saying if we can face the truth, if we can face some of the things that are difficult, that the rewards are going to be potentially something that may be greater than anything that we could imagine. So it's worth it. Whatever it is, whatever struggles you might be facing, whatever situations you might be trying to navigate, this new moon is saying it's worth it. Like, keep going. It's going to be okay. So with that, let's take a look what the tarot cards have to say. So just set the general intention with me that whatever part of this generalized reading really is most pertinent to you and whatever situations you are facing, that you'll know what part of the message is most important for you. And we're just going to ask, how best might we leverage the new moon in Sagittarius, December 1st, 2024, to serve our best and highest good? Okay, it's good. So the very first card is the Ace of Cups reversed. And so with the Ace of Cups reversed as the very first card, it's telling us where we're coming from, where we've been. So there has been some major disappointments that we're healing from. There has been some, perhaps a lack of joy, and the kind of the feeling that I'm getting from this is also kind of just like maybe a little jaded, lethargic, just like, ugh, like just really tired of the grind kind of thing. That's where we've been. That's what we're healing. That's what we're transmuting. And whatever that lethargy is chances are that whatever that is that's weighing down on your soul, that's the anchor that we need to cut. And it's time to just move on, cut our losses and move on. And the next two cards, these two cards came out together. And when cards come out together, I look at it as like the same thing as like two planets conjunct, where their energies are combined. And this is telling us what the nature of the disappointment is. And we have the Justice reversed. So some things that haven't been just, haven't been fair, perhaps got the short end of the stick. And then that is with the Nine of Cups reversed. And when the Nine of Cups reversed is, some of us are dealing with disappointments and injustices from our community, from those that we consider to be closest to us. And so we're reevaluating if we want to have those relationships or if that community still serves us. And if not, Three of Wands. This is a card that if it's time to move on, this is a great card to have. Doesn't necessarily mean that the moving on doesn't produce some sort of grief. Doesn't mean that the disappointment just instantly goes away, but it means that there are new horizons, because this guy here on this card, he has already packed his bags. He's already well on his way to a new horizons, and he's just waiting for a ship to come in. This to me is repeating again of like what you want wants you. So, you know, sometimes it is just best to just kind of let go of whatever it is that needs to be let go of and see what comes next, see what comes new. And I'm actually feeling like I want to ask, I never ask a follow-up question, but I'm feeling like I want to. Like, what is it? How is it that we best can prepare for whatever it is that comes new for us? Like, you know, especially for those of us who just, you know, we don't know what comes next. I mean, that uncertainty can be so anxiety provoking. So let's see, how do we know which way to go? Like, how best can we make our decisions as to what comes next? Okay. Had one that just popped out of the deck. All right. All right. So this is telling us, like, you know, when I talked about like there's certain signposts that like draw us towards something and certain signposts that like are like not that way. This is like a not that way kind of sign. So some of the disappointments that we have had around those who are close to us or people that we've considered our community, certain betrayals, perhaps there have been lies said about you, gossiping, could just be disappointed because certain people just didn't follow through with their commitments, what they said that they were going to do, or you're pulling more than your fair share. That there is an illusion that we're somehow trapped in that cycle, either trapped within that specific community, or this is a pattern that's been coming up over and over again. And we're like, you know what, no matter what I do, it just seems like that this pattern keeps showing up. And that is an illusion, because the Devil card is always a trap, an illusion that we think we're stuck in. But it said that in the traditional Rider-Waite deck, you have it shows a picture of a man and a woman with chains on, with shackles, and then the devil's holding the chain. And it said that those shackles are on so loose that they could just slip them off whenever they want, but the devil has them believing that they're stuck, has them believing that they can't. So essentially, the Devil card is like a perception of being in a victimhood, or being disempowered in a situation in which it isn't true. We have more influence than we think. So if that resonates for you, if you've been feeling like you have just attracted like the same patterns over and over again, those cards, as well as the Sun and Moon squaring Saturn in Pisces, says it's okay. And I would say it's maybe even safe to dare to dream a different dream. So, all right, y'all, thank you so much for joining me here. I am working on some new content coming up. I am working on it. I know that I said in the last video that was coming out, and I'm both content creator and video editor. So I am steadily working on all of those editing for the videos that are coming out. So I'm really excited, because we're going to have some videos on what to do when you can't forgive. If something has happened when it feels like it's impossible to forgive it, as well as some videos on different types of intuition, how to know what your intuitive style is, and what are some common things that can get in the way of those different types of intuition, as well as some remedies for those challenges. So super excited for the new content. If you have found this video helpful or educational at all, please hit the subscribe, the bell, and the bell icon. What's the other one? You know, all the things. And that really helps this channel, and it helps let other people know how to access this information too. Have a wonderful couple weeks, and I'll see you back here when we're going to take a look at the next full moon. Bye-bye.